Hello, and welcome to the Armed Catholic at the Movies, where we take a look at a movie or a TV show and see if it is a hit or a cultural misfire. Welcome back to the projection booth. I'm Rick Barrett, and today we're taking a look at the film Nefarious, starring Sean Patrick Flanery and Jordan Belfly, and directed by Chuck Colesman and Carrie Solomon. And the summary of this film is on the day of his scheduled execution. A convicted serial killer gets a psychiatric evaluation during which he claims he is a demon, and further claims that before their time is over, the psychiatrist will commit 3 murders of his own. Now, Nefarious is a film I had zero intentions of reviewing. I've seen it heavily promoted on the Blaze, and I am not one for the typical cheesy Hallmark Christian film. But you can thank Steve Cunningham and Anthony from Avoiding Babylon for suggesting that I actually review this film. And I have to say, for the first third, I was very impressed with the product on the screen. You see, Christian movies rarely venture into this type of thriller category, and even if they try to, it just comes off as an absolute disaster. However, with the concept of this film and the way it is structured and paced, it really does a good job for most of the film. Of course, being a Christian movie, we want to discuss modern topics, or we want to talk about biblical topics, or topics that are close to our faith. And usually they come across very heavy handed and very preachy. But with the way this film is set up, being very dialogue heavy, and especially the confined nature of just the patient and the psychiatrist, the discussion and the topics that are discussed during it come across more conversational than actually preachy, which is a nice change of pace and a really great way to try and get your point across. However, as we will discuss in the highs and lows, the ending of this film really did take me out. So let's get to the highs and the lows. The highs. There is one high in this film, and it is Sean Patrick Flanery. He absolutely kills it. He is the reason this film is any good. In fact, better than it has any right to be. His performance is very nuanced and at times chilling. Another positive is, like I said before, the way the topics were presented was very refreshing, and it was very nice to see it done in a professional, competent manner. Let's get to the lows. Now, Jordan Belfly is the opposite to Flanery, and unfortunately, I cannot say that he matches Flanery's energy. Although he is conspicuously dressed like Michael Knowles. That was the first thing I thought when I saw him. I'm like, you kind of look like Michael Knowles. I understand that he was going for the reserved academic type, questioning everything, trying to be analytical and an intellectual. Here's my issue. He does not have the gravitas to pull off that type of character. He really doesn't. And the problem with that is that if you are going to go with this silent or reserved academic, you need to have another presence. You have to have something else to bring to the table. Because if you do not bring it to the table, your performance is going to look very wooden. It's not going to match the energy that Sean Patrick Flanery is absolutely bringing to every single scene. And I don't want to say this to sound negative to Mr. Belfly and his performance. Maybe that's what the directors told him to, but I just don't think that was the right way to go about it. Now let's get to the real reason why this film got as low of a rating as it did. And we're getting into spoiler territory. The end of the film, Jordan has what I feel like is a 10-minute scene with none other than Glenn Beck. It may have been 5 minutes, but for me, this thing just dragged out because we had just been through this emotional, really well done performance, this really well done story that's told, and now we're sitting here watching Glenn Beck do his Glenn Becky thing with his glasses and his speech pattern and all this other kind of stuff. Sorry, we don't need to see that. Also, if you want this film to actually appeal to a broad audience, and if you want people to actually not write off this film, kind of like what I'm doing, I'm trying to be fair here and tell you there's some really great things about this movie, but in the end, you're going to have to stomach Glenn Beck at the end of this film. And let me just tell you, Glenn Beck cannot act. He cannot. In fact, it looked like at some point they were doing ADR and over the shoulder shots where you didn't see his face because he just could not get the job done. And let me get to the next point. The way that the ending and what they were trying to get across could have been done in a multitude of other ways that would have felt more appropriate to the story and would have given us a more satisfying ending. This just felt cheap. Of course, one could point out that the Nefarious series, because I know there's 2 books after this, was written by Blaze personality Steve Deese. And I don't know, I'm not trying to say anything, but maybe Glenn told him he wanted to be in the film, and they created that. Because I guarantee you, if this is based off a book, Glenn Beck being in the last chapters of the book was probably not there. So that's why it feels so out of place. And it really is not going to do well because this film has so many good points that it brings up and it presents. It just kind of gets lost at the fact that, oh, well, now we got Glenn Beck here, and this is obviously a Blaze production, and we have to make sure that everybody knows that. And I think that's just, it's lazy, and it really does take one out of the film, and I cannot get behind that. What about the Catholic perspective? Is this film worth seeing? I would actually say yes, outside of the Glenn Beck part, obviously. Nefarious is a nice alternative to the slop of quote unquote Christian movies that are served up to us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, it feels like. It has a very solid idea, a very original concept, I would say, in this space. And as stated throughout this review, it executes it for almost the entire film. In fact, I could even argue that it does execute it, and the film ends in the execution scene. It actually ends there. And then the Glenn Beck thing is probably like a PS, right? A postscript on there. The two totally different films. No cursing, no nudity, no modern message. In fact, there are very specific scenes that are indictments of modernity, which I really enjoyed. I didn't sense any Protestant teachings, my fellow Catholics. Of course, more scholarly Catholics will let me know what I missed. Or if you went to see Nefarious and you caught something, please let me know in the comments below. Like I said with my Pope Exorcist review, I am not a Catholic scholar. I am a back pew Catholic, so I may miss something, but I will give you everything that I catch. So what is my rating for Nefarious? I'm going to give Nefarious 3.5 out of 5 bullets. Nefarious is a good attempt at entertaining Christians without being pretentious or cringy. If only they could have left that Glenn Beck scene out and put something else in there to really end the story really strongly, I would have given it a much higher rating. And I think it would have had a much broader appeal. All right, and that's it for this episode of The Armed Catholic at the Movies. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people can find out about The Armed Catholic at the Movies. I'm Rick Barrett. This has been The Armed Catholic at the Movies. I'll see you at the movies.